Hey kids, Mr. Ta here, and today we're going to talk about previewing text by paying attention to headings and topic sentences to determine what a text might be about. So we are learning to preview nonfiction texts by paying attention to headings and topic sentences. So did you know that there are scientists who study reading and how well people read? These people not only study how people read, but they also make the tests for reading and how people read. And they discovered something really interesting when they studied a bunch of college students. These college students were given a book of nonfiction, and they realized that the students who preview the text and kind of before they jump in and read it, they sort of make a plan for the text and sort of skim through the whole thing and kind of look through the text and sort of make a plan for what they're about to expect, tend to read better than kids who don't. So when they ask themselves, how might this whole text go? They understand the text better than kids that just open the books and just start reading from beginning to end. So that's why we need to learn this as fourth graders. So we will do what's called previewing text. That's our new skill here. Not just making it. Yesterday we made a connection. Now we're going to preview the whole text and predict how it might go to do what's called interpretation, which we learned about in fiction, where we look at the whole puzzle, the whole piece, and we decide how all the pieces fit together. So I'm going to read a little bit from Everything Weather, the book that you also have on Epic, and just pay attention to how I read. I'll move over to that book. So here I am at the table of contents. So before I immediately start reading everything from beginning to end, I'm going to look here to see what this book is about. It's been a long time since I've read a book about weather, but I do know about the weather. I know a lot about the weather because I watch the news and I have to deal with it. So I'm pretty sure it's fairly important. And I know a lot about nonfiction books and how they work. So I feel like this book is going, since it's called Everything Weather, it's going to tell me a lot about all types of weather, probably some weather and how it forms, and then probably some extreme weather. So let me see what the table of contents says. So we're going to do what's called preview. Let me look a little bit closer to this and see what we can come up with. So there's an introduction. Then there's a section called What's the Weather? Weather extremes, weather predictions, and fun with weather. Okay, well, I predicted this book was going to be about weather and extreme weather. Here's some two new things that it's going to be about weather predictions, and I didn't really understand this whole fun with weather thing. I guess that's going to be a whole other section. I may or may not even want to read that section, and I don't have to, but it's good to know that it's there. So we'll look at this first section. What's the weather? So I guess this is going to explain what weather is. So I'm going to go turn to that page to see it. Let's get to that page there. I think it's over here. Oop. Here you go. Whether or not. And I'm going to sort of open this up here. So this is the page that starts out with the previous page said, what's the weather? And then here we have a section called whether or not. So I guess this is about whether if something is weather or it's not. And I see that there are some subheadings like over here. Give me shelter. This is going to be about, I guess, how this frog gets some shelter. And this one's interesting. It says, what isn't weather? Okay, so now we're going to understand the difference between what is and isn't weather. Now let me just read a little bit of this intro. Usually what we're going to find is the first paragraph under the title is going to give me a good overview of what I'm going to expect here. So let me zoom in there. Everybody talks about it, but what is weather? Weather is the condition of the air or atmosphere. Weather is constantly changing. Temperatures rise and fall. Air warms and cools. Wind can be fast or slow. Water in the air can take the form of fog, mist, rain, hail, snow, or sleet. All these things combined make up the weather. Weather can be crazy and unpredictable. Okay, I get it. So weather is the condition of the air or the atmosphere, and that's it. But I saw over here, it said, what isn't weather? And here, it's funny because it isn't seasonal change, and it isn't changes in the earth crust. And that's a good thing to know because sometimes we confuse earthquakes and volcanoes with weather. Turns out it's not. And here, I didn't realize it was going to talk about seasons too, but I thought that seasons might be the same as weather, but no. Summers and hot summers and cold winters are related to weather, but seasonal changes happen because of climate. Weather is the minute to minute changes in the atmosphere. Climate is how the atmosphere changes over a long period of time. Oh, well, now I'm learning the difference between weather and climate, and that seasons aren't weather at all. So you see what I'm doing here? I am starting to put things together based on the subheadings and all these different parts here. I notice I jumped around. I didn't even go to this part yet or that part, and that's kind of the interesting thing about a book, a nonfiction book like this, is that you don't have to necessarily start from beginning to end and read in this way. You can actually skip around a little bit, but each section kind of is its own mini section. This is almost its own mini section right here, what isn't weather, and it breaks it down into two smaller groups. And so each one of those groups explains this bigger topic. So when I look at it that way, I can make more sense of the entire book. When you read, I want you to think about things in this way. Use your prior knowledge of the topic to kind of make a connection to that topic before you start reading, and then scan the text. Scan the text. You just look around at the beginning of the book, in the table of contents, to really get an idea of what your book is about. So imagine that you make a little telescope with your hand like this, where you're just sort of looking through your book, looking through your hand like this, and looking at your book like this, so you're reading one word at a time. And that's kind of what it's like to read nonfiction without previewing it. You're just seeing things one word at a time and just sort of trying to make sense of it. Whereas when you preview, you get to look at all of the book and get an understanding of what the whole book is about and get a sense of how the parts fit together, so that way it's easier to learn. And then you are going to ask yourself, when you get to reading your own books, you don't have to take any notes right now, but you read in that way, preview the text, and then ask yourself, after you're done reading a chunk, ask yourself, did this teach me what I expected? Or am I a little surprised by what I'm learning? Hopefully you're a little surprised. If you're a little surprised, that means you are learning something new, and that's important. And then you can see how all those new parts fit together, and you learn reading your new nonfiction books. So you've got some time to read. Get to it, and good luck.